She's pretty famous, and she's been in the news for bad things over the past couple of years as far as the right half of the country is concerned. Her name is Rachel Zegler. Zegler? I don't know. Zegler. Okay, there's something wrong with this person. She's also known as the star of Snow White and the Disney movie. Remember, she was out like a couple of years ago being like, there's certainly not going to be a prince rescuing me. I can tell you that. And then even Disney got on its heels and they're like, we're going to reshoot the movie immediately. Like, we're going to make some changes because there was so much backlash to her arrogance and just inanity.
Snow White was the fairy tale that launched Disney into global fame. A gentle story about love, kindness, and magic. Fast forward to 2025, and that same fairy tale is now at the center of a fiery cultural war. What went wrong? From a controversial casting to a radical rewrite of the plot, and a massive studio gamble on woke rebranding, Disney's remake of Snow White turned into one of the most polarizing films in recent history. But then came Megyn Kelly. And she didn't just critique it, she eviscerated it. With one viral monologue, Kelly became the voice of millions who felt like their childhoods had been rewritten without their permission. So buckle up. This is the full story of how Rachel Zegler's Snow White reboot shattered expectations, and how Megyn Kelly torched it for the whole world to see. Let's begin where it all started, with the casting. In 2022, Rachel Zegler, the breakout star of West Side Story, was announced as the new Snow White, and Disney immediately started patting itself on the back. Why? Because for the first time ever, Snow White wouldn't be played by a white actress. For some, this was progress. For others, a direct contradiction to the source material. Remember, Snow White, as written in the original Grimm brothers tale and immortalized in 1937, is described with skin as white as snow. It wasn't just a name. It was central to the story's symbolism. Zegler, who is of Colombian descent, dismissed those concerns. She emphasized that Latin American fans deserve representation too. In her words, "Never in a million years did I imagine this would be a possibility for me." She saw it as a win for diversity, but critics saw it differently. They accused Disney of rewriting core character traits for the sake of social optics, and the internet exploded. Why not create a new Latina princess? They asked. Why rewrite a beloved classic for political points? The stage was set, and it was only going to get hotter. But if the casting lit the match, Zegler's interviews poured gasoline on the fire. During press events, Rachel made it clear, this Snow White was going to be different. Very different. She slammed the original 1937 version as creepy. She called the prince a stalker and said the idea of a young girl waiting for a man to save her was not only outdated, it was offensive. We're not doing that anymore, Zegler said. This is a Snow White for the modern era. And that meant no prince, no love story, and no happily ever after in the traditional sense. Instead, Snow White would become, in Zegler's words, not a dreamer, not a romantic, a leader.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign. I am.
To some, this was refreshing. To others, it was erasing everything that made the character Snow White in the first place. The soft innocence, the dreamlike fairy tale, the fantasy. Now she was just another girl boss in armor. Another tough heroine stripped of vulnerability. And fans were not happy. Then came the next blow. Disney's decision to ditch the iconic Seven Dwarfs. The company claimed they wanted to avoid reinforcing stereotypes, especially after Game of Thrones star Peter Dinklage called the dwarves backward. So Disney announced that in this new version, the seven dwarfs would be replaced by seven magical creatures. Some were tall, some were not dwarfs at all. All were racially and ethnically diverse. But the backlash was swift, and not from where Disney expected. Many in the dwarfism community were outraged. Instead of hiring 7 talented actors with dwarfism, Disney had erased the roles altogether. What was meant to be progressive felt like erasure, even more damaging. One activist said, "We've been fighting for roles for years. And when we finally had representation in a classic story, they wiped it out." It was another case of trying to please everyone and pleasing no one. Things went from bad to worse as Rachel's interviews continued to resurface online. Time and again, she seemed, in the eyes of fans, arrogant and ungrateful. When asked about the original film, she didn't just critique it, she mocked it. She laughed about how outdated it was. She said she only watched it once and hated it. She made it clear she didn't care about the old Snow White. She only cared about her new version. People began accusing her of being disrespectful, not just to fans, but to the legacy of Disney itself. Comments on TikTok and Twitter called her insufferable, a PR disaster, and the face of Hollywood's downfall. What should have been the biggest role of her career was now her most controversial. And if things weren't already tense, they got even worse when politics entered the picture. Rachel Zegler publicly posted support for Palestine. Meanwhile, Gal Gadot, who plays the evil queen, is a proud Israeli and former soldier in the Israeli Defense Forces.
That my name is Gal, and I'm Jewish, and we have had enough of Jew hatred.
In a world where every comment is scrutinized, the opposing views of the film's two stars became a major talking point. Some fans called for boycotts. Others accused Disney of avoiding accountability, and social media turned into a battlefield. Suddenly, Snow White wasn't just about fairy tales. It was about war, identity, and ideology. What began as a movie had spiraled into something much bigger. And then, boom, Megyn Kelly stepped in, and she did not hold back. On her podcast, she let loose on Rachel Zegler. She called her condescending, annoying, and disrespectful. She accused her of having zero gratitude for the opportunity she was given, and she mocked Disney's desperate attempt to modernize the film. This is what happens when woke culture runs wild.
And then they had to hire a special media consultant for her to follow her around all the time and make sure she didn't continue shitting on Snow White and the prince and young love and women who want to get married and Steven Spielberg, the executive producer of her previous movie, and white people who she claims wanted to know if she was really a Latina on her first movie.
Kelly said. She hates the very thing she's been hired to promote. She's rewriting the story and insulting everyone who loved it. Kelly's words weren't just sharp. They were surgical, and they hit a nerve. Hard. Clips of her rant went viral. Millions watched. Millions nodded in agreement. Even those who didn't usually side with Kelly found themselves admitting, she's kind of right. So what was the result of all this? A movie that cost nearly $270 million to make flopped. At the global box office, it barely cleared $200 million. A financial failure. Merchandise? Dead on arrival. Fan excitement? Replaced by exhaustion. Even Disney insiders admitted the damage. Internal leaks revealed frustration with how Ziegler was handled. Some execs blamed her attitude. Others blamed the script, but no one was celebrating. It wasn't just Snow White that suffered. The Disney brand took another blow. And in the eyes of millions, it was no longer the Magic Kingdom. It was just another political platform. This story isn't just about one movie. It's about a deeper battle happening in entertainment. Are beloved stories being sacrificed for political messaging? Can characters like Snow White exist in today's world? Or are they doomed to be rewritten? Megyn Kelly said it best. If you hate the original, why even remake it? Why not just create something new? She echoed what so many felt, that Hollywood is out of touch with its audience, that the industry is chasing trends instead of telling good stories, that sometimes a fairy tale should just stay a fairy tale. So, what do you think? Was Rachel Zegler trying to bring a classic into the modern world? Or did she help destroy a beloved legacy? Was Megyn Kelly right? Or did she go too far? Are audiences just tired of being lectured in every movie? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into pop culture drama, subscribe now, hit the bell, and don't miss what's coming next. This has been the real story behind the Snow White remake, where fairy tales and firestorms collide. The story of a people fighting for survival, justice, and freedom. Palestine is not a trend. It's a human rights crisis. And as we raise our voices about what's wrong in entertainment, let's also raise them for those whose voices have been silenced for decades. Justice for Palestine, now and always.